because it is a busy, busy morning news-wise. And let's begin with those developments in the Middle East that you're waking up to this morning, after the Israeli military says that it rescued 2 hostages during a raid in Rafah, that is the city in the south of Gaza.
The news comes amid reports of heavy bombardment right now in the region, which the Palestinian Red Crescent Society says is under attack. Several deaths have since been reported.
Joining us now, and I'm delighted he is, the former chair of the Defence Select Committee, Tobias Ellwood. Tobias, as ever, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. In terms of this hostage information, let's talk about the impact. There's been much, whilst I've been off, certainly in the last few days, about another disaster at Rafah, 1.3 million people being dispersed, being told to live in tents. This is apparently the first time we've seen the Israeli government under fire, it seems, from the world, really. What's your take on the whole situation this morning, Tobias?
Yes, I mean, I've been very supportive of Israel, I think, as we all have, given what happened after October the 7th, but also critical of the manner in which they're using their military might to try and defeat Hamas, given the scale of destruction and impact on the 2 million Gazans themselves. And this is why America has taken the extraordinary measures to publicly encourage Netanyahu not to invade Rafah in the way that they are intending. I should also say, on the same vein, no prime minister should operationally be in charge of the military. You know, the prime minister, the government should set the strategic direction and then leave it to the generals to determine how that actually is prosecuted. And what we're seeing here is so much destruction and mayhem that the world is becoming ever more critical of what Israel is doing. And that's why you're seeing internally, as you suggested, some criticism of Netanyahu and what is happening, given this is now rumbling on for now into the 4th month.
Well, prior to this, you know, the US President Biden had said to Netanyahu, you need a credible plan for civilians. It doesn't look like even the sort of might and the weight of the US is enough to sort of make Netanyahu change course.
That's the interesting thing, because many people, Rosie's dead right, would say that, you know, America, the most important ally to Israel, and if America had dared to say, Israel would have jumped into line. That hasn't happened. This sounds like Netanyahu's out on a one-man mission here, right?
Well, increasingly it does seem so, and there's going to be growing criticism within his own cabinet. But if the United States are saying this publicly, given that you know, Israel's closest ally is America, you can imagine what they're saying privately. Any military asks the questions of their bosses: what does success look like? What are we going to do with our military strength that's going to lead to success? And that's not clear at all from where we're going. We're in Israel and Gaza at the moment. Who's going to govern Gaza afterwards? What is going to be the security structure? These are questions that still elude both Israel, the Israeli people, and indeed the international community, bearing in mind that a lot of the region is probably going to have to participate in the rebuilding process as well. But what's happening here with further use of their strength is actually alienating the international community because there is no strategic plan.
I mean, right now, though, this is a success for Netanyahu because 2 further hostages have been released.
This is really interesting. I'm sure this will then encourage Netanyahu to say, look, I'm having some sort of success. But many of the families are saying, actually, this is not, you know, the way to go forward. The way to do it is to have some sort of deal, work with the Qataris, work with the Egyptians to actually get around the table and secure a deal. That's what many of the families are asking
Tobias,
for.
help me out with something which probably won't be that popular, but it's something that I'd love to ask you because you've experienced. Nobody with a brain cell in their head can like what they see and the devastation of that area. And yes, like you, absolutely, I've been supportive of Israel because of what happened on October the 7th, right? But here's the interesting point. Are these hostages, is it enough, do you think, for Netanyahu, who we know faces criticism inside Israel, and maybe that one-man mission is because he's got nowhere else to turn? What do you say to the people who still will look at their television sets this morning, quite justifiably, I think, in some ways, and go, you shouldn't negotiate with terrorists. You shouldn't sit down, whether it's the Qataris or Egypt playing ball, with people who did what they did on October the 7th. That is not by the way, saying I agree with the devastation, but it's actually saying, how are you supposed to sit down and have a conversation with these people?
Well, this is where strategy comes in, is how you use your military strength to lead you to a strong position to end up having talks. All conflicts end up with talks, whether it's because you've gained unconditional surrender, or whether it's somehow because you've struck some sort of deal for the future. Bearing in mind, Israel is not wanting to run Gaza in the long term, and it shouldn't run Gaza in the long term. So you're going to have to talk with somebody in order to move this forward. But when you have hostages involved, and hostages have been released through negotiations, you can see why the families who still have their loved ones there would want those discussions to continue. More importantly, if you're not going to go down that avenue, as we've just been discussing, sending your tanks in is actually not helping the matter anymore. What's happening is more and more people are being killed. And when that happens, you're actually increasing radicalization. You're increasing those numbers that will sign up and join Hamas. So ironically, rather than defeating Hamas, and they've not defeated the leadership, they've not defeated the strength of the Hamas fighting force, what you're actually seeing doing is people joining the ranks of Hamas because they're so angry with what Israel has done to Gaza.
Today is going to be really interesting, looking at our own military, its force and why there's problems with recruitment. The Defence Secretary is launching a review today into policies around diversity, inclusivity in the army. He's saying resources are being squandered in the military promoting a political agenda. What is Grant Shapps worried about?
Well, the bigger picture that we discuss on a regular basis is just how dangerous our world is becoming. And there's going to be ever more necessity to have a fighting force to advance our defense posture. There is nothing pleasant about warfare. That's what we train to do. It is violent. It is unforgiving. The idea that we then introduce some sort of woke policies into our armed forces is simply wrong. They are there to defend us. They are there to go to war. They are there, if necessary, to kill. These are sort of things that you have to have robust people for that are trained professionally.
Do you agree with Grant Shapps then? Because Tobias, front of the Telegraph today, Shapps says woke extremists are rife in the British Army. Would you agree with that?
Well, he's better placed to say that because he's now responsible for it. But I was in touch with him over the weekend to make sure to understand what's actually happening here. He is absolutely furious that there has been policy discussions on this line. And I just make the point that we do have the most professional armed force in the world. It will only remain so if we remain focused on their primary objective, which is to defend, to secure, and also to prepare for war.
Tobias, you're a legend as ever. Thank you so much for the early rising for us. Thank you very much indeed. Now